Welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. I'd like to welcome you to our last breakout session of the day, Nurturing Resilience, Addressing Mental Health in Swine Communities. My name is Dr. Porozhitnitsky, and I am a faculty member at the University of Minnesota College of Veterinary Medicine. And before we start the session, I would like to thank the National Pork Board for sponsoring the session and the speakers this afternoon. So thank you very much for that. It's always deeply appreciated. So the rationale behind this session is that we really think, we strongly believe in the committee of the Leman Swine Conference that it is time for us to have those conversations around mental health. So I'm really excited because we have a really great panel this afternoon to talk about this topic and how we can nurture resilience, how we can have those conversations in our communities. So our first speaker this afternoon is Charlotte Halverson from Agrisafe. Charlotte serves as a total farmer health coach for the Agrisafe network. Prior to this role, she served as a clinical director for Agrisafe until retiring in December of 2022. Charlotte worked for several years in hospital acute care settings and community education. During those years, Charlotte developed and managed a rural outreach health service and a parish health ministry program serving 9 counties in northeast Iowa and northwest Illinois. As part of the team that developed the National Education Center for Agricultural Safety, Charlotte served as a clinical services manager for 17 years. She is a graduate of the University of Iowa Agricultural Occupational Medicine course. With a primary focus on providing training and resources for rural healthcare providers, she has been committed to improving the health and safety for agricultural workers and their families. Her talk is going to be The Culture of Agriculture, a look at your mental wellness. Thank you, Charlotte. You want to come forward?
Okay, is the volume where it needs to be? All right. Now, if you're not all too, if you'd be willing to, could you maybe all come forward just a little bit? If you don't want to, that's fine, but I would love it if you would. It makes us feel better. I'm gonna figure out how to put this wonderful thing on. I didn't use the other microphone because I wander around when I'm talking, and all of a sudden I'm out the door with your microphone. So,
And we'll chase me down.
and you chase me down. Yeah. I did that the very first Zoom presentation I ever did, before it was really called Zoom, and you have a little microphone, you know, that sat next to your computer. And I was doing this presentation, and I was really nervous about it. And I said, okay, nobody can see me, and I can stand here and I can look at my computer, but I'm so used to teaching, I'm all over the place. All of a sudden, I was over by the door, and nobody could hear me. So anyway, enough of that. What I would like to do is talk to you about a culture of mental wellness. And I think all of us really understand that in the agricultural community, this is a big deal. Okay. And we also understand it's a very big deal, a big issue with those of you that take care of those folks and their livestock. And I am just delighted that we are here with the opportunity to share this information. Agrisafe, a little bit about us. Our tagline is protecting the people who feed the world. And we just do that by really taking a hard look at what are the issues, what's going on, what do we need to be looking at for the safety and health of the people that we work with. We work with producers, we work with businesses in agriculture, we work with educators, we work with students, and all with the focus on the safety and health in agriculture. And to us, that's really important. For me, it's personal. As I tell people, it's my people. I grew up on a dairy farm in eastern Iowa, and we have a lot of pigs as well, so I get it. We use the total farmer health model, And we developed this, it's a spin-off from the total worker health model that CDC NIOSH developed in about 2010 or 11. And I would go to these meetings and I said, this is good, but how are we going to make it work in the agricultural arena? And it took us a while to figure this out and how we wanted to do it. But that's why you see this circle here. So much of agriculture is still focused on the family. Family-run farms, family-run organizations. And that means you've got the age continuum involved. It also means that your health and wellness, whether it be safety, whether it be your physical health, whether it be your mental health, all of that is impacted by so many things. And that's what all these little circles there mean. And this is the model that we use, that we like to use, that we use when we're out talking to people, when we're at clinics, when wherever we are. We always keep this in mind, that it's the total person, the total family, and the total community often. We also feel like we are very much in sync, if you will, with the One Health model. And I really like this, and I like this diagram because I think it really speaks to what we are really all about. Not just Agrisafe, but everybody here. You're here because you care not just about pigs, but you care about the people that take care of the pigs. And in your case, many of you, the veterinarians. So I really just think that this one, it's a collaborative and transdisciplinary approach to things, and it works. It works. It works at the local, the regional, the national, and global levels. I've talked to so many people today from different countries, and the issues are the same, regardless of where you are. And so much of being successful is really focusing on communication, collaboration, coordination. And as the pork checkoff people have said, is people, pigs, and planet. I think I've got them in the right order, and I love it. I just think that really hits the nail on the head. So we really like to be in tune with this model, with everything we do. For me, it's interesting. I'm usually asked to go and talk to folks about respiratory health and hearing and ergonomics and pesticides and all of this stuff. So I'm so excited to be here to talk to people about your mental wellness, because mental health really is what got me jumping into this field when I saw what the needs were back in the late 80s and early 90s, and all of a sudden the farm crisis was, we had so many deaths by suicide in our region, as we did in so many of them. And I said, somebody has got to do something. So it's been exciting for me to partner with folks here that have that interest. So what is the issue? Well, we're not beating around the bush about it here today. Depression, death by suicide. Not fun things to talk about, but it is oh so necessary. The rates of death by suicide, depression, stress, all of that is just really high. And if you look at the rates across the country here in the United States, you take a look at these numbers that are up here on the screen. 3.5 times higher than the general population. Just think about that. That's the farmers and the ranchers and the people that are in the production arena. Look at the veterinarians. Female veterinarians, 3.5 times likely to have death by suicide than the norm across the country. You guys, 2, sometimes almost 2.5%, depending upon what part of the country you're in, but this is where it comes out to 2.1 times as likely. That's scary. And to me, it says, we've got to take care of each other. And that's why I like to talk about, let's get talking. Let's start talking about it and do something about this stigma that so many people fall under, that we can't talk about it, that it's all, I have to take care of everything by myself. This is from the Canadian Veterinary Journal, and it's a little old. It's 2017, so it's a little over 5 years old. But I just jumped on this and thought, this really says it. It says that wellness is holistic integration of physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. And to me, that just seems so in tune with the One Health model that a lot of us are just thinking it is so good. Health is physical, absolutely. It's nutrition, it's weight management, it's exercise, it's all of these things. It's ergonomics, but it also is taking care of your mental health, your mental well-being. And it takes a lot to do that, but I think it's a habit we need to get into. Every one of us can say that we probably have had a time in our lives when maybe we didn't take quite as good care of ourselves as we should have. So why are these rates so high? Well, I'm used to talking with farmers and ranchers most of the time about this. But we looked at it, we said, okay, so why are the rates so high in the agricultural arena? Well, number one, people think that a farm or a ranch is such a beautiful, peaceful, calm place to live. And sometimes it's very true. And most of the people that live there would not have it any other way. But there are issues. When things get tough, especially if you are in a multi-generational farm and taking care of all of that, the stress of taking care of the stuff that my grandparents started is there. Okay? Finances. Some of these things you can control a little bit, some of them you can't. We all know that financial issues in agriculture are huge. A good friend of mine in college, her husband just plunked down a promise of another $1 million. And it sounds like a lot of money to me, but when you're in agriculture, that's the cost of doing business. Weather, you cannot control the weather. Here in Iowa a couple of years ago, we had an awful derecho go through, a land-based hurricane, essentially. It devastated so much property. And unfortunately, these things often hit when it's too late in the year to replant, to do those things. And it takes a toll on the livestock, it takes a toll on the owners. It's just some things you just cannot control. And our producers are so concerned about their animal health and well-being. They want to raise healthy livestock. They want to do it right, they want to do it properly, and they depend upon their veterinarians as their partners, their trusted folks that are there that they lean on all the time. We know in veterinary medicine, I talk to a lot of young vets, my niece being one of them, the cost of education to get to where you are. And schools, are they available? There are not that many vet schools to train people that are really interested in getting into it. The hours that you work, your sleep time, I would bet that there's maybe 10% of the people at this conference that get the right amount of sleep. And I just almost put money, well, not much money, but put money on that. Your physical work is hard. It's hard work. It's hard ergonomically. It's hard on your respiratory system, on your hearing, all of this stuff. You're working in weather that is crazy changeable. It can be, I live in the Midwest. I'm an Iowa girl. And you can get up in the morning and you're freezing, and by noon you're in t-shirts. And it's just tough. It's just not easy. You also are the bearer of bad news. How many here have had to go tell a producer bad news? I'll bet almost everybody in this room has had to do that. And that's not easy. And it's not easy particularly when you have been through pandemics, when you are euthanizing livestock, and not just one or two, but herds, herd depopulation. And we've been trying to work with families that are experiencing that and that huge loss, but also working with the people that take care of that precious livestock. And you don't go home and just get over that. That stays with you, and it's hard work. You are that trusted person. And then to have to go tell a farmer or a rancher what you have to tell them and then do what you have to do, it's just really difficult. So we've been looking at what are some of the resources that we can do? What can we provide? What can we create to help get people on some kind of a path? And we said, okay, first of all, let's just get people talking. Let's try to get rid of a little bit of that stigma if we can. And there is a program called QPR, Question, Persuade, and Refer. And it was developed by Dr. Paul Quinnett out of the University of Washington. And it's really a layman's approach to talking about prevention of death by suicide. It isn't necessarily we're not trying to make therapists out of everybody. We just want to get people in the community taking care of one another and start by talking. QPR, it's an hour and a half online or in-person training. We love to do it in person because we really enjoy talking to people and being with folks, but we do a lot of them on Zoom. We do them for small groups, we do them for large groups, kind of all over the place. And we just really look at what are some of the challenges and talk to community members about how to start maybe having a conversation with somebody that's at risk. We all know people that have been at risk, but have you really been able to talk to them? So I'm going to take just 1 minute and I'm going to make you do something that's tough. I'm going to have you go to somebody that's sitting near you and ask them if they've ever considered death by suicide. And you don't have to use those words exactly. You can say, have you ever really considered ending it all? Let's see how easy it is for you if you've never done that before. Just try it with somebody next to you. Okay? You're hesitating already. Just look at that person in the eyes and say, have you ever considered ending your life?
Yeah. The thought just crossed your mind. It doesn't stay there.
Okay, was that not just the most fun thing you've ever done?
No.
No. It's never easy, but I've done this program with different community groups, producer groups and that on local and regional levels. And they will tell me afterwards, that was really tough, but I think I can do it again. And maybe it won't be quite so hard. And it's not easy. These are some of the things that we talk about when we do that. How to start that conversation. You just kind of acknowledge what they're doing, tell them that you're concerned about them. Sometimes the one thing that may stop somebody from taking their own life is the fact that somebody, one person, cares about me. Maybe that's all they need to know. These are some of the suggestions that we have for how we start that conversation. So QPR is that. It's a community builder. It's meant for the individuals of the community to start talking to one another. And we'll never know really what comes out of it. Another program that we work with and have is called Farm Response. And this was developed, some of our Agrisafe staff was in the development process of this. And it's a training that really looks at the full range of competencies that one needs to help provide a producer, somebody that's working in agriculture, to start on that road to appropriate mental health care. Again, not making a therapist out of you, but this program is 3.5 hours and it is directed primarily to healthcare providers and folks in that realm, and veterinarians certainly fall into that category. It can be virtual, it can be on demand. It costs about $150, but there are scholarships available. I think there's 15 states now that have, that you can talk to somebody and get it at no cost. And oftentimes we do these, you do it individually at home, or you can do it as a group, however it works out. If you want to take a picture of the QPR code up there, you can go into some more information. I'll take you to our Agrisafe website. This tells you a little bit about the program. It has about 8 chapters, and they're kind of in little interactive sections. And there's lots of room for evaluation of how you're doing, what you think of the program. And it gives you, a lot of people like the electronic certification badges that are available on some of these programs. There is that available. And it gives you access to tons and tons of resources that are out there to help you as you try to take care of the people that take care of those precious animals. And as veterinarians, I'm hoping that maybe some of you in local groups can get together and support one another, because nobody knows a vet like another vet. Just like we say, nobody knows a nurse like a nurse. And I think you probably are the prime ones to be taking care of each other. So please, please do that. Some of you have seen this presentation on animal depopulation. We know that depopulation right now, especially with the African swine fever, is kind of like the avian influenza. The work that you have to do is ugly. It's not fun. It takes, you get into that care and death mode sort of a thing where you are really taking care of these precious animals and you turn around and have to euthanize them. That doesn't number any of folks. It just does. I realize it's not that late in the day that you think you're seeing, it's not a pig, obviously, it's a chicken. But anyway, you'll have to accept one chicken on the property here for a while. But if you've not seen this webinar by Dr. Elizabeth Strand, I would recommend that you take some time. We have it on our Agrisafe website recorded if you want to go on and take a look at it. She's got a wealth of information and talks a whole lot about the ADRCT tool, the Animal Depopulation Resiliency Check-in tool. She did a great job of it. We really, really think it's awesome. The other thing I want to tell you is we do have a relatively new resource that some of our pork checkoff people really helped us put together, and it's on foreign animal diseases and depopulation. There are a few of them up here that you can get a handle on. But this is a little bit of what we're about. This is one of the areas that we are really focusing a whole lot of time for Agrisafe on now and mental wellness. So I just want to thank all of you folks that have helped us get this program to where it is, that we can be out there working with our folks. And at the end of the day, let's just get talking. Let's get talking. That's it. That's all I have. If you have some questions.
Any questions from the audience for Charlotte?
Yes, ma'am.
I live in a very rural area, and I find that it is hard for people to access good mental health resources, just therapists or somebody who can work with medication, who's not a nurse practitioner, GP in a tiny town who doesn't know anything. How can we get workarounds for the lack of resources in rural areas?
That is the million-dollar question. It's something that we work on every day, and it's one of the reasons that we have gotten involved in a lot of these resources that I just talked about. You'll hear more from these ladies about what they're doing. You'll hear more from just folks that are really out there and working on it, because we know that a producer is not going to drive 3 hours and sit there for 20 minutes to a half an hour for a 30-minute, 20-minute visit with a therapist, get back in the truck, and drive home. It ain't gonna happen. So how do we do that? Well, COVID really kind of helped us jumpstart the whole telehealth thing, which was really important. So there was that kind of a silver lining to COVID, if there is such a thing. We found out that it is a valuable tool. And a lot of, and I have to talk about my area, my region, a lot of our producers kind of like that, because they could close the door in a little office area at home or in their shop and sit down with their computer and talk to a therapist. We don't know what that did to de-escalate the potential for death by suicide. We don't have those numbers. But we think it helped. And if you can even get them in front of a computer, and most of the therapists in our region are willing to do that. Now, some of them get into these issues with insurance, and well, you know, it'll cover in one state but not another. I live right where Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin come together. One state won't cover it if you're doing it in this state. It's just all kind of crazy stuff. But right now, I think telehealth is probably a huge part of that answer. And getting the community to be supportive. There are programs like Grandmother's Bench that we learned about from some of our African ladies, where people in the community are just kind of trained to sit down and visit and talk over coffee and say, hey, you having a rough day, let's get together and have a cup of coffee. Again, it's that theory of taking care of each other, because We are not going to create a few thousand more therapists in rural communities. This is not going to happen. For a lot of reasons. But yeah, it's huge. It's huge. We all are working on it. We're all looking for creative ideas. And if you have some ideas, please let us know. We're like sponges. We bring them all together.
Mine's not necessarily a question as much as an addition to what Charlotte shared. But anybody that's in here that's part of the veterinary community, my presentation will be a little bit, but I'm with Not One More Vet. And one of the resources that we recently curated, we call it Nobby's List, and it's the Angie's List of mental health resources. I can't say that all of the rural communities are going to be represented on that list, but what it is it's resources by veterinary professionals for veterinary professionals. So if you don't see somebody on there that you would recommend because you've seen them in the past, somebody might be in your exact position wondering, who can I talk to, who can I trust that kind of gets what it is. So if you've ever worked with anybody that you would recommend to a fellow veterinary professional, we ask you to submit those resources because you guys know best. And then if you are actively looking for a mental health professional, domestic violence shelter, etc., all of those that are on there and listed on Nobby's List have all been submitted by a fellow veterinary professional. And the AVMA offers free QBR training online for everybody, so highly recommend if you're not suicide prevention trained that you go ahead and do that as well.
So I actually have one question, Charlotte, for you. Sorry, you sat down, but you talked about the QPR, right? So question, persuade, and refer. But what about the step before, right? Having like, at what time should it come to our minds when we're talking with our clients, or where if we are a farm manager with our employees? When is it time to question? Do you have any input, like as far as demographics? You said that women are more at risk, especially in the veterinary profession, but younger versus elders, times in the career when that should come to mind to us, or is it at any point in time? That might be a tricky question. Yeah.
Any and all.
Yeah.
Is there a particular time that's the best time, you mean?
When we should look for those red flags, and any red flag if we are concerned, about people, when it should come to mind that we should actually ask those questions, because asking the question is hard.
It's
That's very, very hard, but also we need to think about it, because it's like we talked about it before, it's not in our culture, that's something that maybe come to mind. So is there any point in time, in any demographics, any time in the career we're at risk of committing death by suicide, or unfortunately is it any time?
And I may not be going at this the right direction, but I think the person, if I am a farmer, just taking this from growing up in a farming community, the first person I may really listen to is a farmer that understands me, or my vet. And having the time to do that where it's quiet, you're not going to do this in front of a large group or at a wedding reception or anything like that, is saying, hey, Bill, let's go get a cup of coffee. I just really would like to sit down and have a visit. Would you do that with me? And that's where that starts. I would notice that in my clinic, when I used to do clinical services, a farmer in our community would come in, jump out of his truck, and he'd say, Charlotte, I want my pulmonary function test and my flu shot, and I gotta get back, and I gotta get home. I've got 20 minutes. Well, an hour later, we're still sitting there talking, because I would get the idea, and I never schedule people close together. I would get the sense, there's something going on here. So I'd say, ma'am, the weather has just been terrible. How are you dealing with it? And that would lead from one thing to the next, to the next. So usually, that's how it started. And I would often wind up when walking out the door with a referral, if not to a mental health therapist, at least to their family physician, and got that part in the door. We like to get into grade schools and high schools, because I think that's where this thing that mindset really cements when they're 15, 16 years old, because they're seeing what's going on. They know what's going on. We would love to see them have more information in our high schools, in communities, and so if you have a high school in your rural community that you can drop off information and say, hey, you want to come talk to your students someday, that would be a perfect place to start germinating that little seed for kids. I mean, colleges are great too, but I think it really starts in middle school and high school, that they develop that, I have to take care of it all by myself attitude.
If I could just add, as a behavioral health provider, I think if you want to summarize the risk factors, that if you're just like an observer from outside, I think there are two big ones if I were to just educate the lay public. And one is just a change in behavior. I mean, when you notice somebody who's been, prompt on time, who comes to work and who tends to be somewhat of a positive thinker, when they're not that anymore, it doesn't mean they're suicidal, but what it does mean is that something is up, something is off. And so having that conversation about how are you doing, and if in that conversation, the second, best predictor is hope. If you're having a conversation where there appears to not be hope, or thoughts for the future, or talking about something positive into the future, I mean, those are all the times where that QPR training should activate. And so you don't need this diagnostic checklist of A, B, and C to get to C, but I think we all, as healthcare professionals, whether we're treating animals or people, one of the things we're looking for is an observable difference in behavior. That's a huge indicator of something going on, and that's no different in psychology. You simply just, notice something is different, you ask the question, and maybe it's just you're gonna learn in a second, I just had twins. Like, yeah, I'm not sleeping, yeah, I'm pretty crabby. That's the reason, but you can have those conversations, and in them, if you're noticing a lack of hope or prospects for the future, that's when I'm asking that question, hey, we have to have this serious talk. I'm worried about you.
It's often things as simple as all of a sudden they're not taking care of their property. Or if they're in a community and say, I haven't seen you in church in a while. What's going on? Anything happening? Anything I can help you with? Those things, it's that people to people to people within the community. And I think that's where that therapy, if that's the right term to use, starts.
Yeah. That